Hello, my name is Jonathan. Thank you for joining me for another video. I'm a photographer based out of Alaska, and recently I did a trip to Hawaii, and this is one of the photos that I took, and I'm going to show you how I went from the raw image to the final image. So let's get started. We will be focusing in Lightroom today. We're not going to be going anywhere else for all of our edits, so if you only have Lightroom, you are good to go. First, I'm going to I'm going to select the sky, I should say, and did a really good job of selecting just the sky. Quite a bit of ocean actually in there, so we can click this little button and it'll show us the overlay. I'm going to just subtract this, I think. We're going to use a brush, bring the feather down, and then just drag this right along here. I like to be able to see what I'm doing, so I always zoom in. Oops. There we go. And if you click Auto Mask, this little button right here, if it detects an edge, it will reduce some of your spillover if you're painting along the edge of something. Doesn't really work great if there's no edge, but it does a pretty good job actually of preventing you from drawing over what you are probably trying to draw or paint over. So we're going to cruise right along here, and I'll be right back when this part's done. Just a quick tip, if you are drawing along really big stretches like this, it is completely okay to make lots of little strokes instead of going along the entire thing in one long swoop. Because if you go along in one long swoop and then you screw up at the end and you go to undo that part in your mind, well, then you undo the whole thing and then you just have to start over. So it's okay to make lots of little adjustments along the way, like unclick and then click again, click again. That way, if you have to undo something, it's not like you undid this whole thing. All right, be right back. And so now that I'm done with the edge, I think, I uncheck the auto mask because it just doesn't think as hard. It just erases basically what you're painting over. Okay, so now I'm going to right click on this, which is the sky mask. So I'm actually going to rename this sky. Once you get really far into a project, sometimes you can have quite a few masks, and sometimes it can be really hard to remember which one was which one. So I try to remember to name them as I go. So this is sky. I'm going to intersect the mask with a linear gradient, and then I'm just going to drag this down from the top. And so that way it will kind of feather out on the bottom, and it's only going to select where the sky selection was. I'm going to bring down the highlights and the whites quite a bit. It was sun setting, so the sun was setting, so it was getting pretty dark. So something like that. That doesn't look quite right. I'm going to bring this up some more. That just having a hard time getting that to look the way that I'm seeing it in my mind. Isn't that the truth, right? So we're going to do that, and then I'm going to make this a little more yellow. But I think I'm actually going to change. We're going to rotate this mask more so it's like this, I think, and then fan this out some more. Drag this down so it's a little bit longer of a transition from light to dark. I think that's why I didn't like it. I think it was just too abrupt. So we're going to do that, and I'm actually going to create another one over this right here. So I'm just going to hit Shift M because that brings up the radial mask. So then you can just click and go like this. And I'm going to place this probably right over here. Probably flatten this out some, make it bigger. Probably right about there. We're not reducing the exposure. I'm going to click this button so it stops keeping that adjustment. And I'm going to make this more yellow and a little more magenta, and then bring up the saturation a little bit. So I think that looks good. That's a pretty accurate representation of what it actually looked like. And I'm going to bring down the clarity some, just so it's not quite so sharp of edges. And that is it for those adjustments right now. Now, actually, I'm going to go back up here and click on the sky. We're going to duplicate this mask and invert it. So it should only select the foreground, except that was, so we should be able to delete this linear gradient. There we go. Because it duplicated everything that we have. Oops, not in that one. Everything in this one. So that duplicated the brush, the linear gradient. So we should have been able to, we need to keep the brush because the brush painted along the edge of this. So we wanted to delete that, but the sky or the linear gradient was up here. So it inverted it going this way. So that's why it was up here. If I undo that, so you can see this is that linear gradient, but going the other way. So if you do that, and that's why, you just need to delete that gradient, whatever you were doing, whether you used a brush or a radio filter or something like that. So now just the foreground is selected. I'm going to bring up the shadows a good amount. It was really bright, actually. As surprising as that may seem. Bring down the highlights some. And then I'm going to make this a little colder. A little more green. I'm actually going to select the green. Going to try to select the green at some point and bring that out a little bit more. Bring up the saturation some. So we'll try that for now. Like the way that's looking. Dehaze some. I'm not sure I like that. So we'll leave that alone. Okay, now we're going to go to our global adjustments. We're going to bring up the vibrance some. So it's making this look a little too orangey, so we'll go back and fix that. But I think this looks good. I think that'll look good. We'll just get rid of that. We'll fix that mask right now. So we'll see what this looks like without it. So I think I'm just going to get rid of this and keep the clarity kind of softening where the sun was. I'm going to bring this over and then bring this, make it a little more narrow so it's not quite affecting the foreground. And do something like so. Okay. That looks better. We're going to go to here and we're going to bring up the greens, the luminance of the green, and then the saturation of the green as well. I wish this was a little more prominent, but it is what it is. I couldn't get over there because the waves were like splashing way up all the way onto here, so I didn't feel brave enough to try to go over there and get a photo of the moss. I really liked it, the way that it looked with contrasting with everything else around me, but wasn't quite that brave. I actually don't dislike desaturating the blues and then bringing up. Nope, don't like those. Not quite. Let's see what that looks like. No, that's too desaturated, but I don't mind this versus up here where it was. Play with the luminance of the blue. I do like bringing the brightness of that up some. The aqua typically affects the water more than everything else, and sometimes the sky. I don't need, I'm just going to bring the saturation of these down just so there isn't any. Red, nothing. Orange is going to be a lot of the sun, and then the yellow is obviously the sun. So we'll leave those alone. So now we basically just have these three colors in the photo. So I do like this, just that little pop of color over here. luminance, so we can try to shift. No, I'm not, I don't think that's gonna affect that the way that I would like. So we will add a masking to our sharpening. I'm going to do 100% because I don't want it to sharpen the clouds. So I'm just going to bring that all the way up just so it is sharpening some things in the foreground, but not a huge deal. And we're going to do 40 here. Yep. And we're going to do our lens corrections because I forgot to do that first. And then we're going to do our calibration. So probably push this a little bit higher. See how this shifts the color. Actually, I might get more green out of it if I shift it. How would I have to do that? Nah, we'll leave that one alone. Nope. Nope. And then, so I don't hate that. So that's really separating those colors. It feels like it's taking some of that out of there. So I think I'm going to leave that one. And then I know I'm going to leave this one. I almost never use this slider. I use this one and this one more than anything. And then I'm going to just bring this down. Nope, not even just that much. And then the whites, bring this up just a little bit more. Quite a bit more. Okay. Okay. So I don't like, so it's not clipping, but it is starting to make this look too bright for me. I guess I could bring this up more and bring down the highlights more. Although that is making that look so interesting. So I actually prefer that versus anything else. That interesting the way that worked this time. Bring the whites back up just a little bit. Saturation up some. I am going to go back to my masks because I don't like the way that that looks. I'm going to bring this probably back down. So that's too orange for me. It wasn't that orange in real life. So I would rather it looked the way that it did in real life. So I'm going to use this and probably just desaturate that just a little bit. So this would be where we're at. And then we're going to drag this down some. Probably right about there-ish. Just so it was orange, but it wasn't that orange, if you know what I mean. Okay, so I think I actually am going to add one more linear gradient. I can never remember, just M. Okay, I don't know why I can never remember what the linear gradient is. So I'm going to bring this up here, make it pretty big, pretty good size fade. I'm going to bring down the shadows and, nope, just the shadows. Exposure, just a skosh. Just to kind of keep the foreground from looking so prominent. I want the viewer to, be drawn up into the image versus this being so distracting. So I think that looks good. We will go look at crop, and I like the 4x5, and I think that will fix some of my foreground problem. So I might even go back and re-edit this now that we've done that. We might bring this this one up. So we're going to put we'll just do bottom, I guess. I'm going to bring this up some more, make it a little more narrow. So off and on, off and on. So yeah, that definitely draws you up into the image a little bit more. Probably bring this down even a little more. And then I'm actually going to desaturate that some, just a little bit. All right, and that is the final image. Thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you coming along as I edit these photos. I do thoroughly enjoy doing this, so make sure to give the video a thumbs up for me and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. I always appreciate your comments down below. Thank you so much for watching. God bless. Stay safe out there and have a great day.